meeting. This is August 26, 2019. The purpose is to consider a resolution to call for a special election to fill the unexpired term of a vacancy created in Ward 2. I will read the resolution as is prepared, and then we certainly can discuss it. Now, therefore, be it resolved and ordained by the Mayor and Council of the City of Canton, Georgia, that whereas a vacancy in Ward 2 for an unexpired council seat term exists, thereby requiring a special election to be held on November the 5th, 2019 at Cherokee County Election Precinct, serving the residents of the City of Canton to fill this position. And whereas qualifying will be held at City Hall, located at 110 Academy Street, Canton, Georgia, 30114. Specific dates and hours are as follows. Tuesday, September the 3rd, 2019, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Wednesday, September the 4th, 2019, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And Thursday, September the 5th, 2019, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And whereas the non-refundable qualifying fee shall be 3% of the total annual salary of this position, or $360. And whereas the City Council has an intergovernmental agreement with the Cherokee County Board of Elections and Registration to conduct municipal elections. This agreement sets forth the election duties of the City Clerk and the Supervisor of Cherokee County Elections and Registration. And whereas the voter registration deadline for the November the 5th, 2019 election is October the 7th, 2019. And whereas early voting will begin the fourth Monday prior to the election, which will be October the 14th, 2019, and can be done by mail or in person at the Cherokee County Elections and Registration Office in Canton, or in person during the week of advanced voting. Additional advanced voting locations may be announced. Okay. Have any discussion regarding this? Ms. Wilson?
I concur with the resolution if you change the dates to the primary date, March 24th, 2020. I just feel like we're trying to rush it too much. And I've talked to many of my constituents who feel the same. So I just wanted to voice my opinion. I just feel like we're just rushing it a little bit too much if we try to do it.
So
that would be during the primary election. We would not have to the expense, but it would give the constituents that might want to run time to get their signs and all their stuff ready. I just don't feel like it's enough time, Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else?
I concur.
Well, I've heard the arguments for both sides, and I don't disagree with the reasoning for what you're saying, but I also feel like if it were closer, it might be a different matter, but we're talking about leaving a seat vacant for 6 months, or roughly.
5 months.
And I feel like we owe it to the citizens of the city and of that ward to at least give them the opportunity. If no one chooses to qualify and go for this election this time, fine, but at least we've given them the opportunity. As if we don't even try, then they are just not even given the opportunity, and I think we at least owe them that. And that's my opinion on that.
But if nobody runs, it would be a whole 2 years, right?
No.
Well, no, then they would just come back to the March. Then we would just have it again in March.
That's what would happen.
All I'm saying is give them opportunity to do it in November if they want. If nobody wants, then it goes to March anyway.
Right. I understand, but I still feel like that as my constituents have told me that I just don't think it's time for, we might get candidates that didn't think it through enough. And so that's just my feeling.
And also, I have a feeling that anybody that was really interested in running knew this seat was going to be coming available, and I don't know. It just seems to me we should at least give them the opportunity.
And I think, the council member had announced his intentions to seat mayor way back, and so people should have known that. I think that the vacancy was going to occur, and if they had an interest, I guess they could qualify. Mr. Goodman, you have something?
Yeah, I concur with Mr. Yon. I think we announced this far enough in advance.
I've had several people already mention it. It's my ward as well, and I've had several people already mention that they're interested. So I don't know whether they'll sign up or not, but saving the money for the citizens is key. But $20,000, $30,000 is a lot of money to just change it and move it a little further down the road.
But we wouldn't be doing that. Special election would be during the primary, so we wouldn't have to have a.
Is the primary one of the dates that you can have it?
March, yes.
March 24th.
In a even year, it's March, May, and November.
Well, I also agree with Ferris that we shouldn't leave the seat vacated that long. It's just, people have known this since Bill announced quite a while back. I mean, that's been at least 2 months back.
Mr. Estes, you have something?
Yeah, I think the good dialogue, and I guess my thinking is just we'll bring it back to just the kind of the facts. So I agree that, the kind of our process is that Mr. Grant did step down and when he qualified, and while he knew that, or many knew that he was going to run for the mayor's seat, I think the process still is kind of the process per our charter. And I think one of the things that, even though he did it appropriately, qualified late Tuesday and then vacated his seat on Tuesday as well, I think, a couple of things to consider would be, one, well, what if he didn't get the mayor's seat? Would he, as we're kind of hypothetically throwing out scenarios, I think that might be one where you say, well, why is that not in the best interest in his interest potentially, or other candidates, to see how the general election plays out, to give him the opportunity to have an opportunity to rerun for his seat again in March. I think the other thing is, kind of the facts of the why would we do the qualifying again, when we just ended last Wednesday. No one did enter. Mr. Tolan's the only one who qualified. No one else expressed any interest in the qualifying. So I challenge, why would anyone else be interested magically a few days later, less than a week later? And again, I guess I get more concerned about moving this process too quickly. Again, the charter, our constitution for the city is kind of pretty clear on how we need to handle this. And in this case, I think government is slow and deliberate and should follow that. I think we talked about, the costs. I think I guess Mr. Peppers, if 20 to 30,000 for an election seems crazy high. We only budgeted for a special election of what, 1,200 or 7,500? 12,000. Okay, so certainly we've got that as a basis. So, and I think the good news is that we talked about the presidential primary election is coming. So certainly you would think that there'd be opportunities to leverage poll workers, sites who already be set up for the presidential primary. And then I would even argue there shouldn't be any concerns about voter attendance, because typically presidential elections have a higher percentage of overall registered voters who do come out. The last thing, that I think we kind of overlook is there's been discussion around, how could we allow Ward 2 to go underrepresented. I think what's listed on our website shows that actually Ward 2 only represents 12% of the population, whereas Ward 3 has 50%, and then there's about a third of the population, a little over a third in Ward 1. So if you were to kind of say to yourselves, well, from a population per council member, I think we're already fairly well represented in Ward 2, and so despite there being a slight delay, I think between the representation that already exists, plus I think our overall commitment that since we are voted by the voters and constituents citywide, that there should be really no need to kind of excuse any concerns about constituents who need support from the other 5 remaining council members. So So again, I think that this is just a bit rushed and just kind of, again, if you go back to the charter and the overall process, I just don't think that this is necessary.
Okay. Anyone else?
May I?
Yes, ma'am.
When Mr. Cummins vacated his seat in 2014, his seat was left vacant for 4 months in a ward that has, Mr. Esty said, 50% of the population in it. And all of us represent all of the city, so I don't have any qualms about the seat being open.
Okay.
And I'm concerned about rushing the issue. I like that the election could be held on a presidential primary when the polls will be full, and we would get better representation from our city.
Okay. I wonder if we really know what it would cost us during the presidential. Those are partisan elections, as you know. So they'd have to come in and get a Democratic or Republican ballot, plus whether they're in the city or not, right?
So the way our elections are set up now, because we use county, if we had a special election at the same time that we have a city general, still 2 ballots. There's a general election ballot, special election ballot. They show up when you put your card in on the same machine. So if you did a city issue on a ballot that was a county or state ballot, or even a primary ballot, it would still show up the same way.
So it has to be. But if we hold this in November, it'd be exactly the same way.
Yeah, there'd still be 2 ballots.
But there's not. Are there any partisan elections this November?
No.
No. So you've got a Democratic ballot that's got to have Canton voters associated with it. You've got a Republican ballot that's got to have Canton voters associated with it. Not just one ballot that has Canton voters. Right?
No, what'll happen is you'll get your county or statewide ballot for Democrat or Republican, whichever you choose, and then there's a separate ballot for Canton. And so if you go to your voting machine, it's all gonna populate based on your address, whether you pull a Republican or a Democrat. The last item on the ballot is going to be a special election for the city.
So it's electronically going to magically show up on your
Right.
ballot.
Now, from a paper standpoint, if you pull an absentee ballot, there will be an absentee ballot that includes the city language. But I think what we had discussed with Kim is that there's technically 2 ballots anytime you have a general and a special anyways, because they're considered 2 different elections.
So what you're saying is the cost would be the same.
The cost of an election is going to be about the same regardless. We went back, Nathan pulled the records from 2011 until current. We've had 8 elections. The average cost of an election is about $9,000, a little over $9,000. Of those, we had, in 2011, the general elections were $6,700. In 2013, you had the special election for the fire bond, and that was $13,800. That was the most expensive one we've had.
Mm-hmm.
In November of 13, and that one was in March, I should say, in 13. But that was also a March of a because it was an odd year, so it would have been a March of a non-statewide election. Does that make sense? It was the only election in March. November of 13, the election was 10,000. There was a special runoff election in December that was 7,500. In November of 14, which was the election to fill the vacant council seat, that was 10,500. The city's general election in 2015 was 9,700. The general election in 2017 was 7,600. And then the brunch bill last year, which was a special election, was 12,100.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? We don't have to vote on this, so if we don't vote on it, it's gone.
Go on the
Okay.
record, motion to deny the resolution.
Well, okay. Have a second? Anybody want to second that?
Second.
Okay. And
What was the motion, Nick?
To deny the resolution.
Oh,
the purpose of the special called meeting.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. 3-2. Motion of resolution is denied, and I will not call another special call meeting before week after next. Promise.
Okay. Move
Motion
to
to
adjourn.
adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.